My name's Seth Mashmeyer.
And I'm Kara Mashmeyer.
And we've been married about 7 years now.
Mm-hmm. And we were not really trying for a family right away, but we pretty early on into our marriage, maybe a year into our marriage, were ready to start growing our family. But after a few years, we started to discover that getting pregnant and having biological children was not something that was just going to happen as easily for us as it has been for a lot of other people. And so we've always been open to adoption. In fact, we talked about that before we even got married, that we wanted to adopt. Shortly after we decided that that's what we were going to pursue, we were presented with a potential private adoption that ended up falling through. But because of that, we were home study approved, and shortly after that time, we actually discovered that we were pregnant, which was a big surprise, but of course we were elated, over the moon. So it was pretty early on in our pregnancy that we discovered that we were pregnant with twins, but we ended up miscarrying them when I was about 10 weeks along. And it was just a really difficult, really deeply dark time for me personally. I think for us as a couple, it was just probably the hardest thing we've ever gone through. So we took a little bit of time to kind of process that, to heal from that, before we decided to open the door to adoption again. And so it was probably like 6 months maybe after that we decided to apply to an adoption placement agency. It was actually the day that they received our application that we got a phone call, and she said, well, we actually have a situation to present to you right now if you're interested. And I was very caught off guard because obviously that's pretty fast. We had put it in the mail about 2 days before. They got it and gave us a call. And so Sadie's birth mom wanted to meet us over Skype. So we got to meet her, and as you would expect, her birth mom was she was just more reserved and quiet, and there was obvious brokenness that I almost had to be reminded of what a heavy heart she had to have had during that time. And so it was hard to kind of temper our excitement with being so respectful and understanding of where she was coming from. And that was just such a surreal experience because a lot of times adoptions will take place at the hospital right after a baby's born, and Sadie actually was, like Seth said, almost 5 months old. And I just remember she had actually requested to give her to us personally, which was really special and something that I'll never forget, and I'm so grateful for. So I just remember sitting in the room and Sadie's birth mom walking in, holding her, and she was almost 5 months old, but was so tiny. She weighed about 8 pounds and was just this little teeny tiny, the most perfect little thing you could ever imagine. And so she walked in and sat down in a chair just right by us. We had
No idea what to expect, and it was all happening so fast. And so she sat down, and it was just sort of silence for a little while there. Not really sure what to do.
It was just I think it was good for us to have that visual reminder of just how great a sacrifice Sadie's birth mom was making.
A birth mother who decides to put their child up for adoption, it's such a selfless act, and a lot of people maybe don't see that side or don't understand that side. But
so sitting in that room as she comes in holding Sadie, she just was crying and not even really able to speak for a little while. So we just had a couple minutes of, honestly, all of us just crying, just so aware of what was happening, the hard loss that was taking place. And just in a very swift moment, her birth mom stood up and put Sadie in my lap and left the room. I'll just always remember her looking up at us, and she just started smiling and started giggling, and it was just so incredibly special. And like, adoption just has so much loss, but so much joy, and so much pain and fear, but so much peace. And it's just hard to even understand and explain all the different layers that happen, but it was just so incredibly beautiful. We just had no idea if we would ever see Sadie's birth mom again, but it was probably 15 or 20 minutes later that she came back in the room, and it was like this weight had been lifted off her shoulders, and she was smiling, and she wanted to show us the new things that Sadie was doing and tell us about her routines and her schedules. And it was just like there was peace. There was peace for all of us, and we were all laughing and smiling by the end, and we got to take some special pictures. And so it was just a day full of every emotion that you could ever imagine. For me, I think one of the biggest things that has, in my walk with Christ, that has come from adopting Sadie has just been God giving me a clearer and better understanding of His love for us. And I think a lot of times we go through life, you know, even growing up in the church, like knowing how much God loves us, but it's so much easier to believe that God loves someone else, or He loves them, but to really accept it for yourself and know how much God loves me was something that I just didn't. It was harder for me to grasp and just to understand. And when we adopted Sadie, and just the love that we had for her, the unconditional love of no matter what she could ever do, we would never love her less. That she is the most precious, perfect thing in the whole world to me. It's like God showed me that that's how I see you. That's how He sees me when He looks at me. Is it doesn't matter how messed up I can be or the wrong things that I can do, that He sees me as the most perfect little thing, and that He sees me as righteous because of the blood of Christ. And so just for me to have an actual experience of that from the other side of being a parent to this little child that we adopted, just like God adopted us, is just something that has really changed my heart and my life, and how I am able to have an added sense of comfort and understanding and acceptance of how God loves and sees me.